5 days after major spine surgery, barely able to sit up on my own, I heard my husband's voice at the front door welcoming 12 relatives into our house. I thought it was a kind gesture. I had no idea what they'd actually come for. I'm 47 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I had a spinal fusion surgery I'd been dreading for over a year. The kind of procedure that requires weeks of careful recovery, limited movement, and heavy pain medication that left me foggy for most of each day. My husband, Cameron, told me 5 days after the surgery that his family wanted to check on me and bring some home-cooked food, since I couldn't manage the kitchen. I appreciated the gesture, even groggy and exhausted as I was. What I didn't know is that checking on me meant 12 relatives arriving at once: his parents, his 2 brothers and their wives, and several cousins I barely knew. I was propped up on the living room couch, still in a back brace, still on medication strong enough that I struggled to follow full conversations. I assumed, in my haze, that this was simply an overwhelming but well-meaning family visit. About an hour in, Comran's father pulled out a folder and set it gently on the coffee table in front of me. He explained in a calm, reasonable tone that the family had been discussing restructuring the ownership of the small rental property my late father had left specifically to me, years before I married Comran. He said it would be simpler for everyone if my name came off the deed and Cameron's name went on in its place, since married couples share everything anyway. I remember trying to focus on the papers in front of me, the words swimming slightly from the medication, while 12 relatives sat around the room, some nodding along, a few gently encouraging me to just sign it so everyone can relax and enjoy the visit. Kamran handed me a pen. He said it wouldn't take more than a minute. I want to be honest about how close I came to signing it. I was in pain, exhausted, mentally foggy, and surrounded by 12 people who all seemed to agree this was simple and reasonable. Some part of me, desperate for the visit to feel calm instead of overwhelming, almost reached for that pen without fully reading anything. Instead, I asked, as clearly as I could manage, for a few days to review it with my own lawyer before signing anything involving my father's property. The room's mood shifted instantly. Kamran's mother said there was no need to make this complicated. Kamran himself looked embarrassed, not for pressuring me, but that I'd said no in front of his entire family. They left a few hours later, the visit ending far more tensely than it began. Once they were gone, I called my brother, who happened to be a paralegal, and had him look at the folder that evening. My brother explained that the document wasn't a simple ownership adjustment at all. It was a full transfer that would have signed away my father's property entirely, with no compensation, folded into Kamran's family's name through a joint holding arrangement his father managed. Had I signed it in that foggy, medicated state, surrounded by pressure from 12 people at once, I likely wouldn't have understood what I'd actually given away until much later. I confronted Kamran that night. He admitted the plan had been his father's idea, timed deliberately around my surgery recovery, believing I'd be too exhausted and medicated to read carefully or push back. He said he'd gone along with it because he didn't think it was a big deal since we were married anyway. You used 12 people and my pain medication to try to take my father's property, I said. That's not nothing. I never signed anything. The property is still in my name, and I've since had a lawyer formalize protections around it that Kamran's family can no longer quietly work around. Kamran and I are still married, still in counseling, still trying to understand what it means that he let his family attempt something like that during one of the most physically vulnerable weeks of my life. I think about that afternoon often, how easily 12 calm, familiar faces almost talked me into giving away something my father specifically left for me. If I hadn't asked for those few extra days, I don't know what I would have understood or when. If you've ever felt pressured to make a major decision while you were too exhausted or unwell to think clearly, I hope you find the same pause I found before it was too late. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories like this one.